This is Andrew Hall, and you're listening to Dead Hand Radio. My guest for this episode is Constance Victoria Briggs, an author and researcher who's written books on a multitude of topics, including Mysteries of the Moon, Angels, ETs, Life After Death, and much more. A prolific author, rigorous researcher, and highly sought after speaker and guest on some of the most popular shows around. She's been on Coast to Coast AM, Spaced Out Radio, and has an upcoming appearance in Shadows of Your Mind magazine, as well as many others. On this episode, we discuss her latest book, The Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries, Secrets, Conspiracy Theories, Anomalies, Extraterrestrials, and more. So many beliefs and theories are connected to our nearest celestial companion, including some strange tales surrounding the moon landings and possible government cover-ups, and Constance has studied many of them in depth and will discuss these and more on this episode. Hi, Constance. Welcome to Dead Hand Radio.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. Did I leave anything out of your bio that you'd like me to, or that you would like to include?
No, that was lovely. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I really do appreciate you being here. I'm excited to talk to you. I have a ton of questions. I would like to talk to you about several of your books, maybe not all of them, but I would like to talk to you about a couple of them.
Mm.
And we will start with your latest book, The Moon Mysteries, and drill down on that and see how far we get. And then if there's time to talk about any others, then we will get into those, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
To talk a little bit about, okay, first of all, I got to say this because I mentioned it in our pre-recording conversation, but you've been on so many other shows. You've talked about your experiences and your work and your background on so many other shows. I just want to ask you, is there anything that you haven't said about how you came to work in this field and became so interested in such a multitude of topics?
So I'm not sure that I've actually told people that this whole thing started with a spiritual journey. My interest in the universe, what it all means, just like man has been, questioning for many years. I was a young person with the same sort of questions, why are we here? Who is God? Where did we come from? I was not happy with the answers that I was getting in religion. They weren't fulfilling me. So as a young person, I just started seeking. I studied different religions, and one thing just sort of led to the other. And I found that, over the past 30 years, I've just amassed a lot of knowledge and information that I found answered some of my questions, but certainly opened up a whole lot more. It's been a great journey, I must say.
That seems to be the case when you're looking into any topic. Almost the more questions that you have answered, it opens up so many more questions that you want to get answered. So it's like the journey never ends, and that's an important message right there. Is that the answers are not always the goal, right? The goal is to enlighten yourself and learn as much as you possibly can. Seeking those answers is only going to open up more questions.
More questions, and we certainly can't answer them. Even within our lifetimes, there's just so much.
Yeah.
Right now, I am so overwhelmed with information, happily though, happily.
Sure.
I think that we should always be growing and learning and asking, no matter what age we are. I find it amazing that, at this point in my life, you know, I have, you know, 200 questions a day. It feels like that I want to put out there and research and you know, get answers to. And I'm talking to people all of the time and making friends in this field of you know, cosmic research. I've looked into you know, as you said, angels, and you know, I wrote a book, who, you know, the Encyclopedia of God, who is God, and now there just seems that I have had these steps I've been taking, and information. I believe I have guides guiding me. You know, I never would have imagined that I would be talking so much about extraterrestrials and, you know, UFOs, which is, you know, way, well, not way, but, you know, I started with angels. So yeah, you know, just keep, I tell my friends, just keep seeking, and you just never know where you'll end up. It's been amazing.
It's so true, and your story sounds a little similar to mine, although different circumstances. um, and I started out my podcast with, you know, focused on the Cold War, because that's something that's been interesting to me my whole life. And when I decided to start a podcast, I wanted to do it within a topic that I could talk about intelligently. And so almost as soon as I started, it led me down some serious rabbit holes. And I almost instantly started looking at and getting information about paranormal activity, UFOs, and these are areas that I had an interest in for, you know, several years, not my whole life, as long as the Cold War, but um, it's just interesting how you can start out on a journey thinking you know what the path is going to be, and then as soon as you come to a crossroads, you have to make a decision. Do I want to continue on this path only, or do I want to also travel down these other paths and see where they lead to? Uh,
Well,
is that kind of how your experience has been?
yes, very similar. I've, along with what you said, I have also learned that sometimes what seems like a different path, two different paths, are really interconnected,
That's a good
are, you
point.
know, really intertwined. It's unusual. So much of what I write about, I am finding some amazing connections. You believe it or not, you can connect angels to extraterrestrials.
Right.
You could connect God in a way to ancient aliens. Um, you know, because he goes so far back, and you know, the belief in one God goes, you know, so far back that, you know, some people have made connections with the Bible and some of the ancient artifacts that we found, and connected it to perhaps there be God having created even other worlds than this one. So that's a whole other topic. I haven't written about it, but I have come across that kind of information in my research, which just, you know, blew me away. So yeah, we could talk for 5 hours, Andrew, just like you said
That was a
before.
joke. I don't think I could sustain a 5-hour conversation, but we'll get into some stuff. You already said a couple of things that I would like to expand on a little bit, and um, the angels and ETs, we will definitely get into that. I've got a segment already mapped out for us to go down that um, area, but your Moon Mysteries book is your most recent work,
Yes.
and so I just want to get right into it and ask you some kind of pointed questions, if you don't mind, about the book.
Okay.
What are some of your favorite mysteries about the moon that you've uncovered as you were doing your research?
You know, there's quite a few interesting ones, and I'll just start throwing them out there, in no particular order. One of them has to do with, and I'll just go there, the Apollo astronauts. You know, we were discussing that, you know, there are some people who don't believe that we ever went to the moon. But my whole reason for writing this book wasn't to promote Apollo, but to show the things that the astronauts saw while they were up there. And even if you don't believe that we ever went to the moon, there are enough mysteries without that to let us know that there's something strange going on with the moon, which is what the book is about. Just if I may say really quickly, I wrote this book to give people the opportunity to look at bite-sized pieces. It is a little encyclopedia with stories of mysteries on the moon, and you can go in there and you can look up astronauts, Neil Armstrong, structures on the moon, lights on the moon, and use that as a jump-off point to get to other information and do your own research. But so with that said, one of my favorite stories involves, and a number of them involves the astronauts, because if I may digress just a little, we don't hear, I think, enough information on what actually happened to them while they were out there. So I think that's where my favorite stories come from. Some people think that we only went to the moon once. They'll say, "Oh, we never went to the moon," but in fact, we had several missions to the moon. 12 men walked on the moon, and so it wasn't just the one. So while they were there and on the way to the moon, the astronauts actually encountered a number of UFOs and strange lights and noises that were unexplained and sometimes were frightening. And, they were often, blown away by this. So in one case, excuse me, but there were several missions. So I can't remember all the time which mission, Apollo 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, or 17, which one saw what always. But on one of the missions, as they went up, they were followed by 2 UFOs here, that were near the rocket. And not only did Mission Control acknowledge them, but also a couple of other governments that were monitoring us also mentioned seeing 2 UFOs follow the launch. And also the next day, once they were communicating with the astronauts about it, the astronauts also said, yeah, we saw them. They followed us for quite a ways. So some of my favorite stories come from the astronauts having seen UFOs and bright lights in their ship where, caused them to go and try to look out and see, and they would see something following them. Apollo 11 has a very famous story where they had seen something out there. Some people believe it was a part of the vehicle, a piece of vehicle created from the launch and going up into space. But others believe no, this thing was something different. It was shaped like the letter Z. One of the astronauts spoke about it and wrote about it. So that's those are some of my favorite, the fact that they actually encountered all of them encountered something while going into space, which is not something I was aware of growing up.
How is it that you found out about these experiences that the astronauts had when it's been so closely guarded and covered up for so long?
It's not that covered up. It's not that guarded as people think. I said, and people just didn't believe me, but you can actually go into the NASA website and you can look up the missions. Now, have they covered up things? Sure. Is everything covered up? No, because sometimes, they talked about it and they said, okay, yeah, we went out there, we saw these strange lights, we didn't know what they were. That's not something that they covered up. There is a story where one of the, actually 2 of the missions, Apollo 10 and Apollo 13, both encountered issues. And it is believed that in both instances, there were extraterrestrials that did help. In one of the cases, Apollo, excuse me, not 10 or 13, it was Apollo, yes, 10, sorry. So Apollo 10 was on a dress rehearsal for Apollo 11, and they encountered a problem during their practice mission where two of the astronauts were trapped as they neared the surface of the moon. They were going to land, they were just practicing, and they were stuck. And they couldn't get some materials on the moon on the vehicle to work. And they saw something outside of the craft pass by. And once it did, everything inside began to, all of the mechanical problems they were having began to work, were fixed. And they swear, some people swear that there was a conversation once they returned that whatever they saw caused the problem to be fixed, and they were able to go on their way. Now, that's something you're not going to hear them talk about or say, okay? But that is a story. That's the story. My Moon Mysteries book talks about real life events, but also mysteries that we don't have all the answers to. With that said, for example, now that was a mystery that maybe you won't hear them talk about, that they covered up. However, there is a story, and I believe it was Apollo 15. And again, I'd have to go right to my book, but where the NASA thought they had a picture of what looked like an ancient spaceship on the moon. When you look at the moon's surface, you see people trying to make out images on the moon. And this thing looked incredibly like some sort of ship, and they thought it might be an ancient ship. Well, you can go on and you can see that picture, and you can see for yourself if that were the case.
Is this on the NASA website?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I can't tell you off the top of my head the name of the number of the picture.
Is it in your book?
It is in my book. It's in my book.
Okay.
There was a story, and I don't know that they were trying to cover this one up or if it was just an oversight, because it was in the news just a few years ago. I don't know if you heard the story about the astronauts hearing music on the moon.
I've heard something about that.
They didn't hear music, but they did hear something. I know it. It was in the news. So it wasn't a cover up. It's something you can go and you can look up. All right. So the story is that basically when they had to go around the first time to the far side of the moon, some people refer to it as the dark side, but the far side, when they are back there, when they're on that side, they are out of touch with NASA for 60 minutes. While they were back there this first time, they heard strange sounds. Nothing should have been making noise back there. And they said, oh my goodness, what is this? And so basically what NASA has done is they've recorded everything that happened during these missions. They've recorded, they've got dialogue. I've got some of the dialogue in my book of things that they said. And in this one, they were saying, what is that noise? And someone said, oh, it's spooky space music. And said, oh my goodness, do you hear that? And they said, yeah, it sounds like woo, woo. And they said, oh, they would never believe us if we came back and told them. They say, should we tell them? And they said, no, we shouldn't tell them. And you know why? Because at that time, if you reported hearing and seeing odd things, then they, wanted to evaluate you for your stability and you could lose your job. So they came back, and for whatever reason, this was put away. This recording and the transcripts were, they put things away when they come back, and they were pulled out. They were found a few years ago, and they were in the news. That's not something that was covered up. It's there.
Is it true that there have been tapes and footage of the moon landings that has been erased and recorded over?
Yeah.
By NASA.
So this, yes, as far as I understand. So this information comes from people that worked for them, during the 60s and the early 70s, that came forward and they said, we saw, in the imaging rooms where they were, covering things up and they were marking them out. That's as far as I know. I mean, were they telling the truth? They said they weren't supposed to tell this information, but they wanted to let the public know, and they did. There is one interesting picture of a UFO that was taken around the moon by one of the missions. And it was very, very early on. And this thing, it looks like when you see the pictures, I've seen the pictures, it looks like they tried to, before they got the more sophisticated with Xing things out and marking them out and coloring them out, they just tried to use this black tape. And you can see where they were, they had done this. It's very interesting to see. But one of these photos slipped past them. And you can see the image of that UFO on there. And it sort of looks like some kind of ship with strange wings coming out, and it's white. So, I mean, it's up there. They're not trying to cover that up. Everything's not covered up. The NASA, okay, let me just tell you, the stories of anomalies on the moon go back to Galileo. And moving forward from that time, there have always been reports of movement on the moon, lights on the moon that cannot be explained. And they became so prevalent that NASA itself decided to put a book together with all of these strange sightings of lights. They call them transient lunar phenomena. And they made a book about it, or a catalog about it. And in that catalog, you can see the names of astronomers that saw them, the dates, the color of these things, where on the moon they were located. I mean, it's just amazing. I have it. And you can buy it off of Amazon, So it's not, everything is not covered up. That's out there. And it's fascinating. So these lights have been seen around the moon, on the moon, and in the craters of the moon. Sometimes they're there for an hour, sometimes for several hours. I mean, they monitored them so closely. They move, they appear, they disappear. Some of them have cloud-like formations. And in some cases, someone said they saw something that looked like a hive of some sort of insect moving. That's the closest they could describe it, this big image of a cloud with something inside moving across the surface of the moon. These are not things that were covered up,
The mission to go to the moon, to send humans to the moon, started during the Cold War, which is the era that I've been interested in my whole life. It would seem that the mission accomplished. Apollo 17 was the final mission, and there was two other missions that were canceled. 18 and 19 were both canceled, right?
Right.
And we haven't gone back to the moon since. There have been a couple of probes sent over there by other countries, but we have not put humans back on the moon. Do you think that's for budgetary reasons, or is there something else going on that we haven't gone back to the moon?
There's been a lot of speculation on that. And so in the beginning, they were saying that the American people lost interest in the astronauts, in the missions. I don't know why they would. That seemed weird to me. And they're saying also there were, like you said, budgetary concerns. But, there are stories out there that really makes you think, because we do have all of the tales of not only what I just mentioned, strange lights, where are they coming from? Movement on the moon, where is it coming from? Nothing should be going on up there. I've seen images myself of UFOs flying around up there from videos, modern day videos. Nothing should be going on up there, right? So who's doing it? So the speculation is when the Apollo 11 astronauts went up, there is a tale that said these astronauts saw something, and that they're saying was covered up. Whether or not it's true, we don't know. None of the Apollo 11 astronauts ever said they saw this on the moon. They said the story is that they saw alien spacecraft on the crater of the moon, and there were several of them. And how do we know? Well, apparently the Apollo astronauts had a secret line to ground control, where if something went wrong, I guess they could contact them. One of the stories I know says they were lines directly to a doctor. And then some people picked up this transmission at home on their own private radios. I don't know how that whole thing works, but they did. And the story is they told ground control, we see spacecraft on the moon. They're sitting there watching us. And they were a lot freaked out, actually. Later, there was a story that Neil Armstrong had said they weren't completely shocked about that story because what happened, because they always knew there could be something up there. That's the story of something he said. So, of course, the idea is that if there is someone up there, maybe, that is the reason we have not been back to the moon. So, since Apollo 17. So, and the story is also that when they did go up, after Apollo 11, it was just very quick. They just did a little scoop for science, or put down a flag or something, and came back. So the story is that perhaps after Apollo 17, or during Apollo 17, and maybe during Apollo 11, we don't know, or whichever missions, then maybe they were warned off the moon. That's what they think. Now, why would we be warned off the moon? So my own idea sort of, comes in that, perhaps, the moon is a world of its own. There is a story that the moon is really too big to be a natural satellite of Earth. So maybe it actually is a planetoid. And perhaps this planetoid, just like our Earth, was or is inhabited, and they don't want us there. There's some theory that whomever may be up there is watching us and has been watching us, this entire time, and they don't want us there. Maybe they've monitored us, because it certainly seems like it since the Apollo missions were followed, that they've been watching. Now, maybe they're watching to see if we get there, and they don't want us there, and they let us know, and maybe that was covered up. That's a theory of a cover-up. I wanted to say, I'm sorry, were you going to say something, Rob, really quick?
Well, I was going to ask you if you are familiar with the project that was going on prior to the Apollo missions, prior to the mission to go to the moon, that there were plans to actually send an atomic bomb to the moon and explode it on the moon?
Well,
They didn't do it. They didn't do it, but they were actually planning on doing it. There was a program in place to actually do that.
Oh, I don't know about that one.
This was in the 50s. Yeah, that's something that maybe you might want to look into, because it's an interesting, and it was during the time of high tensions between the Soviet Union and the U.S. The Russians, or the Soviet Union, was kicking our butts in the space program. We were so far behind. They were beating us at every turn. So a group of military people and scientists got together and decided we're gonna nuke the moon and show that we're superior to our adversaries by doing that. Well, luckily the program was scrapped. It didn't happen, but that's just one idea, and it came to my mind because when you were talking about the possibility of some other race of beings living on the moon, had we nuked the moon and destroyed their civilization, or seriously disrupted their civilization, how bad would that have been for the Earth?
Oh, of course. of course, we can't nuke the moon. The Earth
Right.
relies on the moon for
Right.
survival, which is a whole other conversation I would love to get into. Yeah, destroying people. No matter if we believe, in extraterrestrials are up there, or a secret government, just killing. That is a possibility because we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's up there. These missions, they never found out exactly what's going on up there. They haven't even been able to explain the origin of the moon. That's a whole other story. But I do know about Project Horizon that went on in the 50s, where they were trying to put a plan together for colonization of the moon. And I believe there was a second or different project where they were trying to maybe this was connected to Project Horizon, where they wanted to have used the moon as a defense area for that, but none of those got off the ground that we know of. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's all I know about. I don't know anything about that part of it. I know, of course, we nuked the moon with something a few years ago, and they were saying
it was
that
a satellite. We sent a probe out to the moon and decided to crash it into the moon to see what happens.
Oh yeah, so
it rang like a bell for hours on end or something.
No, this was 2009 where we sent up a bomb of some sort that hit the moon. And they said we were trying to they were trying to find water, which we had already found by then. The story is, perhaps they knew about some structures up there, and they just didn't want it found because there's so many different governments trying to get up there now. And I told you some of the there's some interesting imagery on some of the NASA photos that shows that there have been what look like structures and ruins up there. A lot's been written about those. So maybe they were just trying to get rid of some of the evidence before someone else found it. But
if that's true, that is so criminal that would be unforgivable if they were destroying ancient structures on the moon just to keep it secret.
It's a theory. There's no proof, and I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying these are mysteries. That's what the book is about. These are mysteries, right. and these are theories. But true to one thing that is true, and again, they didn't cover this up, is that they did lunar 12, Apollo 12, sent a piece of the lunar module into, hit the moon. It hit it and it rang like a bell. They actually did this on two different missions, and once it rang for even 3 hours. So that's not covered up, and from that they were able to discern that the moon is hollow, that it should not, of course, be reverberating, and the moon is hollow. And now people are asking, well, if this is true, then what's in it? They could have covered that up, but they didn't. So I don't feel like that everything is quiet. And this is one thing, with my book, even though there's been a lot of conversation about the moon, I meet so many people who haven't heard anything like this. So they've been quite, fascinated, with it.
I have heard the theory that the moon is hollow, and it was because of that ringing or that vibrating that it took place. I've heard also that there is a theory that opposes the hollow moon theory, and it's because at one point there was lava flow throughout the moon, and it created all these tunnels. So what they're saying is that the moon is not completely hollow, but subsurface of the moon has so many porous and hollowed out areas that's why it was reverberating like that. Don't know if that's true. That's a theory, and I don't know if they can even prove that. But there are opposing views to the hollow moon theory.
Yeah, maybe they want to. Okay, maybe they wanted to keep that one quiet. I don't know. Maybe there's some regret in letting that information out so early, because I've seen some video, where it looks like there are some, ships or white things going in and out of holes in the moon. There's been some talk of it possibly being some sort of hangars for ships to come and go. And that's one theory about the hollow moon. That there are people actually living inside this planetoid, that the moon is inside out. It is a planet that is inside out. So that's interesting. I don't know if you've heard of the generational ship or spaceship moon theory. This is one of my favorite.
Okay, well, explain what that is for anybody that might not know. I've heard of it, and I don't know all the details, so go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, once NASA sent the astronauts up and they came back with this information about the rocks on the moon, what the moon is made of, it's being hollow, there were some scientists out of Russia that looked at this and said, you know what, this is really strange. It looks like the moon is hollow. It's not just hollow, but it may be a kind of a ship. And people thought, what are you talking about? This is crazy. And they were like, well, okay, but this is the only thing that answers all of the mysteries of the moon, as is this is a sort of ship, because the whole hull of the moon and all of the elements on the moon that make up the moon are such strong elements and metals that they said if you were going to build a ship, what the moon is made up of on the surface is what would have been used on a ship to make it survive heat, meteorites hitting it, anything that might hurt it, so that it could sustain itself for thousands of years as it tracked across the universe. Titanium, zirconium, and I'm forgetting the third one now. Were elements that you can find here, but just traces. A couple of them just traces, and I'm not a scientist, so I may not sound so very.
Helium-3 is supposed to be really abundant on the moon, which they use in nuclear reactors.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing too. It's a lot of it there, which we have very, very little here.
Right.
And it said that the governments may be trying to get up there and see who's going to get to that first, because that whichever nation gets that will be the richest nation on earth. But anyway, so they said that there may be beings living inside this thing, and that they came from that the moon was created basically outside of our solar system. It's shown from the science that the astronauts brought back that the moon is older than the Earth. The rocks, have a discrepancy with the age of Earth. And so that whole big whack or a giant impact theory that we've all been taught of how the moon came to be has fallen by the wayside because it's not matching. So the only thing they could see is that maybe it was created because of the age. Outside, hollowed out, this big gigantic moon of ours, hollowed out and brought across the universe. Now, interestingly enough, there is an ancient tale by the Zulu people out of Africa where they explain how the moon was created. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
No.
But the Zulu people say, they use the example of an egg. They call it an egg. They said the moon is an egg. The moon was hollowed out by two brothers, and that it was a planetoid. It was hollowed out, and then it was sent across the universe and placed in Earth's vicinity. Now, this is a very ancient tale, and there are some stories that ancient people were visited, going back to Ancient Aliens, were visited and given information by advanced beings to help people on Earth progress. And that it was interesting how the Russian scientist story and the Zulu tale, come together. How would these people have known that? Well, that's what they had said. So the theory is that maybe these, if there are ETs in this thing, maybe they were escaping a sun, blowing up. and had to get away, and this was a generational ship, excuse me, that came across the universe and parked itself here.
There's a movie. Sometimes I invite guests to come on my podcast to talk about science fiction. What you're talking about sounds like science fiction, and it reminded me of a movie that is recently come out, I think, on Netflix, and it's called I forgot what it's called, but it's about the Earth. Our sun is about to die out. So humanity comes together, puts these great big rockets on the Earth to move I think it's called The Wandering Earth. I think that's the name of the movie. Okay. So they ignite these rockets and push the Earth out of orbit, and they're trying to make it to a new sun. That's kind of the theory that you're talking about, right?
Right. I mean, all suns will explode. All explode one day, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So that's the theory, and it didn't have to be the sun exploding. It could have been a war that they were escaping. It could have been something apocalyptic on their planet. Otherwise, maybe they were destroying themselves, and where they had to escape, and it was some sort of a Noah's Ark kind of a deal. So yeah.
Well, I have to say that that theory may not be as far-fetched as it seems, because there's a really well-known and very renowned scientist. I think he's a astrophysicist his name is Avi Loeb. Are you familiar with him?
No.
Are you familiar with the Oumuamua? What is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's funny. I was trying
that object
to say
that came to, yeah.
I was trying to tell my family. I was trying to tell my family about this the other night, and I couldn't pronounce it.
So yeah, that Avi Loeb is the scientist who has speculated that may be some kind of an alien craft traveling through our galaxy, through through the entire galaxy. Right. So and that thing, it doesn't look anything like a spaceship that humans would build.
No.
If that's the case, who's to say that the moon isn't a spaceship, and it's been parked here for however long it's been here. But I don't know. I don't know if they can prove it one way or the other, but until they prove it that it's not, I think that question is still on the table.
Well, they've got to get up there and do more exploring. So far, we've only explored less than 1% of the moon. People think, when they went up there, they've seen the moon. No, it's a very, very small area, even with all of the missions that went up that have been examined. I have a couple of quotes. Could I share them?
Yeah, sure.
That I just love. So the Russians, these Russian scientists said in their paper, it is more likely that what we have here is a very ancient spaceship, the interior of which was filled with fuel for the engines, materials and appliances for repair work, navigation instruments, observation equipment, and all manner of machinery. In other words, everything necessary to enable it to serve as a Noah's Ark of intelligence, perhaps even as a home of a whole civilization, looking at a prolonged, perhaps thousands of millions of years existence and long wanderings through space.
Who's credited with that quote?
So those are the two Russian scientists. They're both credited for saying that, and in their paper that they wrote, it was published in the early 70s in Sputnik magazine, and it went from there. planetary scientist William Hart said in his book, Origin of the Moon, neither the Apollo astronauts, the lunar vehicles, nor all the king's horses and all the king's men could assemble enough data to explain the circumstances of the moon's birth. They have no idea, with all of the money they spent sending men up there, how the moon came to be. They're still searching. And every few weeks I read another theory, but nothing's been proven. You would think it would have been by now. And and I have one more. If you don't mind, I'll make it really quick. Isaac Asimov, the science writer, said, "What in blazes is our moon doing way out there? It's too far out to be a natural satellite of Earth. It's too big to have been captured by the Earth. The chances of such a capture having been effected and the moon then having taken up a nearly circular orbit about the Earth are too small to make such an eventuality credible. But then, if the moon is neither a true satellite of the Earth nor a captured one, what is it?" We're still asking. We're still wondering.
It's a mystery, that's for sure. And it's a fascinating mystery too. And like we said, we both agreed on this when we first started talking, that every answer you get opens up 100 more questions. So even if we do find out, how the moon was made, there's 1,000 more questions that we need to continue to research and find out after that. So let's move on. And is there anything else about the moon you wanted to mention before we move on and talk a little bit more about your other work?
Yeah, I just want to say, in my personal opinion, I think it's a good idea to learn more and research it, because,
Absolutely.
I think we're going to enter an age of hopefully moving in further out into space, and who knows what we'll encounter. And we should have all the information we could. That's what I think about the moon.
And hopefully we'll be going back there soon. There are some potential projects within the next 10 years to 20 years that could put humans back on the moon. And I hope that comes to fruition. So the other books in your repertoire include the Encyclopedia of God, the Encyclopedia of Angels, and the Encyclopedia of the Unseen World. Is there any that I'm leaving out?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so let's start with the Encyclopedia of the Unseen World. First of all,
Yeah.
which of those books did you write first?
The Encyclopedia of Angels.
Okay. We will touch on that a little bit, but I'd really like to, and for personal reasons, it seems like a lot of the people that I've been coming in contact with recently have experience or gifts, or I don't know what you would call it, but they have this connection with this unseen world. Can you explain what the unseen world is?
The unseen world is, the unseen world, first of all, is vast. Some people only believe it to be a heaven. It's not what just the religions call a heaven. It's more than one dimension. It's enormous, but basically it's the space that, it's pretty much stated in Unseen World that as we in our physical body in this life, we cannot reach or see while we're here. They can reach us, but we can't, they're around us, but we can't see them because, we're just too heavy in this existence. I don't know how to explain it otherwise. A world that we can't see, that's, pretty much simplifies it to me.
But there are people who can see glimpses of it. Isn't that true?
Yes, the majority of us cannot. There are people who have special talents or gifts or an extra sense that can see into this world. It is uncommon. And then sometimes the world itself, people on that side can allow themselves to be seen, and they can perhaps lower their vibration or their energy to materialize, in a way that we can see them. And I just want to point out that the unseen is such a hard question to answer simply. I say, okay, yes, well, we can't see that. Might sound kind of silly. So I'm just going to say, if you believe in heaven, heaven is unseen, and that is just the space. It's called many lanes, but that is the space that we go once we die, once our physical body dies, because we really are a spiritual person inside this body, and we leave it. That is one space, but there are different dimensions within the unseen world that you can see and be a part of, and that have existing people. There are also dimensions. There are interdimensional beings that can come through here too, that we ordinarily cannot see unless they kind of will allow us to. Or and in some cases, and we don't know how the science works over there, we can hardly explain how things work over here, but in some cases we do get glimpses into those worlds for whatever reasons. I have some very interesting stories of people that have seen interdimensional beings.
So the subtitle of that book, Encyclopedia of the Unseen World, The Ultimate Guide to Apparitions, Deathbed Visions, Mediums, Shadow People, Wandering Spirits, and much, much more. What are shadow people?
We don't know what shadow people are, but I shall give you a description of them. So, it's been debated. Are they spirits, or are they extraterrestrials, or are they interdimensional people? So the shadow people are black. They are darker than the night. You can see them even when you've got all of your lights off. You can see one of those shadows. That's how dark they are. My kids have seen them, and I've seen one. They have the appearance most of the time of a human being in shadow form. So you can, there's been some seen with a top hat. Some just have a male silhouette or female silhouette. At first, many years ago, when people were seeing these things, they said, I saw something run by out the corner of my eye, and it was black. That was a shadow being. But as the years have gone on, they have become more and more easy to see. Some of them people see them now straight on. Some people see them moving around as if they're having their own little social occasion. Some people see them moving through rooms. They're no longer just out the corner of your eye. Most of the time they are running away. They don't really like to be seen. And it appears that if you notice them, they will go and hide. One person said, I saw this thing, it was standing, near my dresser, and once it saw me, it kind of was able to jump like behind there, and I couldn't see it anymore.
Is there I don't expect you to have all the answers, but you must have some kind of a theory or an idea. Why would they hide from us?
Yeah, well, there may be, Andrew, some beings that are more aware of who they are and us than we are of them. If you think about this, for example, I've had, experiences with people on the other side that I can't see, but obviously could see me, and were making themselves known. They have the ability to see us. So these things apparently know that maybe they shouldn't be seen, or they don't want to be, or maybe they don't want to scare us, but they have that ability to know that we shouldn't or can't be seeing them, but they can see us, and we probably are not. They are not seeing us in shadow form, or maybe they are. I think maybe there is someone in a different dimension that somehow we are able to see them. My husband thinks they may be ETs, but I don't know, that are watching us. But I'm wondering if we are just seeing, like looking through a foggy glass mirror. Instead of seeing your reflection, you kind of see an image of these people, and maybe they're aware that we really can't see them, so much. I've never heard of it. I've never heard of an incident where they were harming people. And I have a funny police story to tell you too, after you ask your question.
I was gonna just ask you if the shadow people or shadow beings, are they the same thing as angels?
No, I don't believe they are.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I would like to hear that
Just
that story about the police officer.
yeah, just one. I was uh, looking up doing some shadow research one time, and I came across a story of a police officer who works the night duty, and he said, he had written in and said, "What are those things? They look like shadow people. They're just walking around and moving about. And I just sit in my car waiting for a call, and I'm looking at them, and they're just, all over the place, just moving." And he says, and then I'll get a call, and I have to go, and I just leave them doing whatever it is they're doing.
So he sees them all the time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
Now
rare,
my son,
it's rare that a person of that type of work would admit to seeing
that's
things like
right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, my son used to see them. My daughter saw them too. At the time he was so young, I said, "Oh, they're Santa's elves." He says, "What is this going up the wall?"
Do they no longer see them?
No, not lately. No. No, as they've gotten older, they haven't. I saw one once. I was sitting in my dining room I had dinner guests, and at the time, I had a little boy and his cousin, were there, and they were 3 to 4, like something. No, my daughter, 3 and 4, and they were running around, and we were at the dining room table, and I saw this what looked like a little person run by, and it was pitch black, and I knew it wasn't them, but I went under the table to see what the heck it was, was I one of the kids? Or the lady next to me says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I saw this. It looked like one of the kids ran by." And she said, "Oh, was it black?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Oh, I saw it." And then went on eating. Just because she just kind of shrugged.
Jeez, wow. Because it was perfectly normal to her, huh?
She didn't say any more, but I was in such shock that I didn't know what to say. So it was a long time ago.
You mentioned other dimensions, and that sparked a thought. There's this theory, and I don't know how much stock I put into it. It seems like a pretty far-fetched theory in my mind, but it's the theory that we're living in some kind of a simulation, like we're avatars of some other beings, and this is all an illusion. Are you familiar with that theory?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts or comments on that?
So I've been thinking about this a little lately. There was a writer, a hypnotherapist, a hypno regressionist, or I'm not sure of the right word, but she used to regress people where they would go back into their past lives, and they would tell her stories. And she amassed a lot of information about the other side and the afterlife from them. Some of these people had died, and come back and told her about going to the light and all of this. Anyway, she said it's a game. She said, "This is all a game." She said, "If there's anything in this life you don't accomplish, you'll get another chance. It's all a game." Um, so in that respect, that made me think of this whole matrix theory that, I see it's very complicated because I believe that we are a being inside of a being, and that when we pass away, we do come out. But then other people are now saying that this spiritual side of us can be multidimensional. We can live in different dimensions, and we are a being that is controlling all of these lives to amass information and experience, and that may be the higher self, they're saying. So there is some theory to it. I don't know, but maybe, who
That's
knows?
interesting. Yeah,
But not like the movie. Please.
no, that what you just said puts it into a little bit of a different perspective for me
Yeah.
now than what I was thinking. But are you familiar with the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies? It's
Yeah.
it's Robert Bigelow. Are you familiar with him?
No,
Okay.
Robert Monroe. That's not the. Are
No.
you? Okay.
It's Robert Bigelow. He is
Okay.
a well-known entrepreneur. He has worked in the aerospace industry for decades.
Mm.
He's the former owner of Skinwalker Ranch. Are you familiar with that place?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I just didn't know his name.
Okay. That's Robert Bigelow, the Robert Bigelow
Okay.
I'm talking about. He has recently started a new uh, nonprofit organization called the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies. There is a contest going on. The prize is quite significant, but what he wants to do is stimulate the conversation about. Are you still there?
Uh,
Oh, I just lost your picture, but I could still hear you.
hold on, Andrew. One little second. I'm so sorry. I have to tell you to hold on. All right. Okay. Can you see me and hear me okay?
Yeah, I can see and hear you now. Again.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. But anyway, the contest has been put out to the entire world for anybody who wants to participate. He basically wants people to prove an existence of life after this existence. And
Right. I've heard of that contest. Yeah, again, I did not remember his name. It sounded like a interesting contest. Yes. I think he was looking for the best
essay.
story.
Yes.
Yeah,
essay.
to win.
Yeah, he wants people to put together basically a court case, present a case to prove that there is an existence beyond this bodily existence.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a pretty honorable thing to do. He's nearing the end of his life. A lot of his loved ones have passed on, and he wants to do something, leave a legacy behind before he goes, and try to answer one of life's biggest mysteries. What happens to us after we die? Uh, so it seems like this is an area that you've been studying for some time within your own work. What do you think happens to us after we die?
So I'll start with my father and this book, at The Unseen World. One of the reasons that I wrote the Unseen World book is because I personally had a lot of experience, weird experiences. And I wanted, after my dad passed away, he returned. And he gave a lot of signs and signals and did some things in the house to let me know that he had survived death and he was fine. In fact, I dedicated that book to him because of that. It was clear to me that my dad was on the other side. I believe that, once we go, we are in, a realm that is a place of learning, even socializing, a place where we're busy. And I believe that we are so much more, than who we are on earth. So I believe that, we return to that original form. I was telling my daughter the other day that who we really are is not who we are in this body. We are not born. We do not begin to exist when we're born on earth. We existed and then we came into this world, and that being on earth is like going on a trip. Just like if you went on a trip to China right now, earth is just a stopping point in a journey of our original self. Now, some people refer to that self as a spirit, some the soul, astral body, light body, whatever your word is. We are something more than just the body we have taken on to live on earth, because that's all it's for. And it's not just we are not just a person of the earth. There are many worlds. We can take on different forms, but we have to return to the source before we are able to travel again. So we go home, whatever form that is, whoever we were or are, we return to that. And that's our true selves. And that's where that whole matrix, theory comes in, that this is just a temporary time here and that we're controlling it. It is a temporary time. That's what I believe happens.
I'm trying to figure out a way to phrase this without offending you. I'm kind of the same mind, but there are a lot of people that are very skeptical of that kind of an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any kind of evidence to support that belief?
Well, I believe that when I don't know if you're going to call this evidence, I do believe that when we are asleep at night, that we leave our bodies and we travel. If you've ever had a time where you felt like you were moving, traveling, flying, seeing people that you knew, more than likely they're not dreams. They're you leaving your spiritual self, leaving and going into that other side, into that unseen world. So many people I talk to have had the flying experience. That's you traveling. We come back into the body and we can't always remember what happened in our dream state, but often in that dream state we're moving about. If you've ever had any I know how to put this. I can't say it's evidence, but I can say that some of the reason people don't understand that they are having the experiences is because they are not aware of them. When my dad crossed over, my dad was doing everything he could to let me know he was there. And I'm someone who knew about it and I still didn't get it. He was screwing up my computer. My computer was doing things I'd never seen before. I was on the phone with my husband. I was trying to write the God book and I was upset. And then when I thought about it, it took my dad to pull out a outlet, a cord from the lamp, from the wall to get my attention. If I had been paying closer attention, I would have known that what was happening in front of me was too weird to even, I can't go into the detail, but it was just strange, so strange. Sometimes we have strange experiences, but we write them off as a coincidence. We're way too skeptical and we don't believe what's right in front of our eyes. So sometimes you're going to have to go by what people tell you. I don't make things up, people have said they've received telephone calls from the other side. If someone tells you this, do you not believe them or do you think they're crazy? Or do you not want to believe them? If they say to you, I saw a ghost, and ghost is relative, that's a whole other topic. Do you believe everybody who's saying that they see a ghost are crazy or making things up or imagining things? No, it's not. You have to open your mind to see the evidence sometimes that's right in front of you. My kids had a teacher, their fourth grade teacher, father passed away. And she was distraught. And she worked in a Montessori school. This house had been turned into a rather good sized school for kids. And she was so upset, she was crying all the time. And she told me she was walking down the hall and her father appeared in front of her deceased father. And of course, she was freaked out. And then, of course, when she recovered, he said, Vicki, you have to stop grieving. I'm very happy where I am. I'm perfectly fine. And he visited her 2 more times at home. She said, Constance, if anyone had said to me, do you believe in this stuff? She said, I would have said, nah, until that happened to me.
What you're talking about is, and I don't want to sound dismissive because I'm just trying to get to answers. But what you're talking about is anecdotal. It's just people's stories. Now, I'm the kind of person that I tend to believe people's stories when they tell me stuff about these kind of experiences. But a lot of people are very skeptical and they don't believe. They think that you are either hallucinating, not you per se, but the person conveying the experience. was hallucinating, um, or maybe was, um, it's hard for me to say because I believe the people, but they could have been lying. Some people do fabricate stories. Um, there's a number of alternate explanations that could, um, explain why what the person is saying. Uh, now, in my mind, that is kind of irrelevant. Don't you know? I don't. Uh, I don't put much stock into people that are deniers like that, because I think that there is something to these experiences that people have. I think they really have these experiences. The point that I'm trying to get to, and I guess the question that I'm trying to say is, besides the anecdotal evidence, is there anything that can point to, um, this alternate existence being a real place?
Mm. Well, if you mean something that we can pick up and hold, I, no.
Yeah,
If we can look at,
there are videos of orbs and apparitions. I've seen videos. I've heard EVPs. That kind of evidence
that's not enough
exists.
evidence though for people, huh?
Or in some cases, it's not. I mean, for me, you know, I'm convinced. I don't need to be convinced, but, I'm going along the lines of what kind of essay that this, um, Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies is going to be looking for. I'm just kind of thinking along those lines, and
Right.
there's
Right. Now,
there's a ton of evidence, but it's not. Is it proof? Is it hard evidence? That's the thing. I don't know.
I don't know what they're looking for. I can tell you if a picture, my daughter has had orbs around her in pictures, for a while. And we found this big thing, orb that looked like a cauliflower on the wall in one of her birthday pictures.
Wow.
The thing is, it's not only just on the wall, because I had to look at that and I said, oh, there's no motion, fire detector there. What is that? Then the more pictures I looked at, I could see it long range, depending on the angle of the camera. It wasn't the size in all the pictures. It was obviously, it moved around and it was different shapes. Wow, that's a pretty good evidence, huh? Actually, because it wasn't, the same size or same sized orb in front of the camera the whole time. That's going to be quite an amazing presentation.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking
That's
forward to
given.
seeing that, and it's going to be made available
But
to the public. It's not something that he's keeping top secret or anything like that. There may be a price attached to reading the final essay or whatever, but
there's other stuff out there. There are recordings of people on the other side that they've done. You can listen to the tape sometimes and hear people that have captured voices of people
yes,
on the other side trying to talk to them. I mean, just because you haven't had the experience, doesn't mean it's not true. And sometimes, like Vicky, it just has to, present itself. And also the UFOs,
yeah.
that just has
That
to present
that's
itself.
that's another excellent, point that you brought up, and I would like to ask you if you have an answer for this. Is there a connection between the ET phenomena and these this unseen world? Is there some kind of a connection there?
Um, I believe yes, yes. Now I do believe that there are many aspects to the unseen world, but I believe that there are extraterrestrials and unseen terrestrials um, that are around us that we can't see. So some extraterrestrials may be ethereal. They are not angels, but they have a a world, but they are in a form that we cannot see them, I believe, just from studying some of the extraterrestrial stuff. And there is a book coming on that. And then there tends to be perhaps terrestrials, people like Rudolf Steiner and Emanuel Swedenborg, these mystical people swore that they saw, angels and beings around that others couldn't see. And then I've heard stories of other kind of beings that manifested from, like from history, like fairies and trolls and things that people have got glimpses of that I don't believe are otherworldly. I believe they are earthly, that we cannot see. So in answer to your question, yeah, it's very complicated.
Yeah, that again, I'm searching for answers. I have so many questions. Now, let's talk a little bit about your other two books, just to kind of round out the whole set of the books that you've worked on so far that you've put out. The Encyclopedia of Angels. Just give a brief description of what that is, and then the Encyclopedia of God. And why did you write those two books?
Oh, Andrew. So
Yes. Am I losing you?
yes, you are. You're losing me. Continue. I'm going to try to get some help here and see if it's me while you continue talking, if you don't mind. Andrew?
Sure.
Andrew?
I'm still here.
Okay. I'm going to, is it all right if I walk while you're talking?
Absolutely.
I apologize to you and your audience. I don't know if it's me or you. All right.
Well, you seem to have a solid connection right now. So if you want to continue doing that,
Okay.
or maybe find a spot
Right. Let me
with
see.
some light on it.
Yeah, let's see if this works. How's this connection? Because I know we don't have much longer. So
Yes, we are going to wrap this up in a few more minutes, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about your other two books, Angels, or the Encyclopedia of Angels, the Encyclopedia of God. Give a brief description of those two books separately, and why did you write those?
So the Encyclopedia of Angels came about when I was the idea came to me when I was a very young woman, and I, like in my 20s, I never was able to see it through until later. But interestingly enough, I had a pretty negative experience with unseen creature, and I was looking for help. And at that point, I learned all about the angels. And I learned the names of angels, to call on angels. And I swear to this day that they really helped me. So I thought other people should have some sort of connection to them. And I created this book. It lists angels, the names of angels, the archangels, the hierarchy of angels, angels through all cultures, because angel is to me kind of a word that we use here, in the West, but they're not always called angel. So I put all the different words in there from various religions and cultures and things, in case people wanted to call on them. People should know that they are there. There are helpers in this world. I have so many stories about angelic beings that have come, and that people should know that when we enter this life from wherever, whoever we are coming in here, we are not sent in here alone. We are sent in here with helpers and even guides to help us get through and accomplish whatever it is we're supposed to do. And, if you find yourself in a tough situation, you really, really can call on angelic beings. I've seen it myself.
Well, that's a nice, that's a really nice thing to know.
One day we'll have to talk about some experiences that people have.
Absolutely. I would love to continue this conversation in another episode in the future. But talk a little bit about your Encyclopedia of God, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay.
So the Encyclopedia of God, I was looking for a way. I wanted my own answers, and I started my research, and it turned into this book of who and what God is throughout Earth. people's ideas from ancient times to modern times throughout the cultures and religions of who and God, what God is, and if there's any commonality in the different beliefs. And it too is broken down into encyclopedia type of entries. You can go from Christianity to Buddhism to Samaria, to all of these beliefs and who and what God is.
Is it one God, or does all these religions have a different God? In your opinion, obviously you don't have that answer, but in your opinion.
Yeah, I believe that there is one source, all right,
okay.
that the universe sprang from. And I don't mean the Big Bang Theory, it goes deeper than that. But these religions, very interesting stuff. Honestly, I do trace it back to ancient aliens, in that I believe there were beings that came in here to speak for that source to different people. And that is how these different religions evolved. Bottom line is they basically believe the same stuff, that we're going to die and cross over to a better place one day. That was a commonality that I find in these religions.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. Yeah.
So how can people find your work, and if they want to reach out to you and get in touch with you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, my phone seems to be acting up. So my website is constancevictoriabriggs.com. You can go there and reach me. My books are on Amazon. You can also reach me on Facebook under Constance Victoria Briggs. My Facebook page for the Moon book is called Moon Mysteries. You can like that page and get more information on the moon.
Great. All right, Constance, is there anything else that you'd like to say before we call it a night?
No, but I only want to say that I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
I have to. And the invitation is open for you to come back anytime in the future. If you have a new book coming out, feel free to reach out to me and let me know when that happens. Okay. And then I may get in contact with you and just get into more about angels and God and hear what you have to say about those two topics.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. I'd love that.
Thanks again, Constance. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.